All right. So welcome to Yoga Over 50, coming to you from Blue Point Yoga Center. My name is Lynn, and it's good to have you here this morning. So today what we're going to do is some stuff with planks. Those of you who were here for some of the osteoporosis sessions about a week or so ago might have heard me say that I thought one thing that might be missing from Laura and Fishman's selection of yoga poses was planks, which are great for all kinds of reasons, but they're also great for supporting the spine for purposes of avoiding some of the bad effects of low bone density, both curved posture and possibly fractures. So we're going to just mess around with those a bit today, a little exploration and experimentation. But let's begin lying down. So lie down on your back, take a comfortable posture. You could have your legs outstretched or your feet flat and your knees bent for the moment. In a little bit, we'll have the knees bent, but just be comfortable in any way you like right now. Let the back of your arms rest on the floor with the palms facing up so that you can feel your shoulders spread apart across the top of your chest in the front. If you have your knees bent and your feet flat, or you might want to do that just for a moment, and just pick up your bum and sort of stretch it away from you so that you can lengthen the spine as you take your supine posture on the mat. So just making a little more space between the vertebrae. Let yourself rest here. Draw your attention inward. Close your eyes or let your gaze be soft. Focus on your breath. So lying on your back, you can feel the back ribs moving on the floor as you breathe in and breathe out. Now your back's not really moving while you're lying on the floor, but nevertheless, if you bring your attention to the waist part of your spine, you might feel just a little bit of feeling like it arches up very slightly as you breathe in and settles and flattens a little bit as you breathe out. You know, sometimes we do that on purpose with muscle action. So don't make any purposeful muscle action. Just let everything relax and just kind of notice as you breathe in and out whether you feel just a little slight rocking sensation through the pelvis, and that in turn affects the small of the back. Now let your breath return to its unobserved pattern, but bring yourself back to your breath at any time during class, and especially when you're doing something effortful, as planks might be. Let your attention come to your breath and focus there as a way of relaxing things that you don't need to have operating. Okay? So now let's, on an inhale, bring the right knee in toward the chest and stretch the left leg long, taking a long stretch between the two legs. And then we'll let that right foot come to the floor, press it away, and draw the left knee in toward the chest. Draw it in on an exhale and press away with the right foot. And then bring the right knee in toward the chest as well, and just let your fingertips rest lightly on the top of the kneecaps. So your arms are bent with your fingers on your kneecaps. And on an inhale, straighten at the elbows so that your thighs drift away from your torso. And on the exhale, use your arms to gather the legs back in. So keep your hands on your kneecaps and just straighten and bend at the elbows to sort of create this little bellows action of the thighs moving close to the chest on the exhale and away on an inhale. So if you have short arms, you maybe don't move very far at all. If you have longer arms, maybe your knees are going in and out a longer distance. And then with your knees just comfortably in toward your chest, use your hands to move your knees from side to side. So you're using your knees to draw a horizontal line. Now you'll feel the weight shifting in the back of your hips, but this is not really a rolling side to side. So let your hips move in the hip sockets under the muscle power of the arms. It's actually kind of hard to do. Your torso wants to roll from side to side. And come back to the center. And now we'll do a little circling. So let your knees go away from you. Again, the arms are moving the legs out of the hip sockets. So round to one side, back toward your chest, then round toward the other side. You'll feel your weight shifting, of course, but not so much rolling as moving the legs at the hip socket. And it's the arms that are moving the legs. And then come back around the other way. So try to make the muscles of your legs as relaxed as possible so that your arms can move the legs. Go a few times. Maybe you feel this as a massage on your back. And then bring the knees back to the center. Gather them in toward the chest. Then let them separate. Again, we're using the arms to move the legs. So you're making sort of a figure 8 shape with your knees coming out to the side and then back together again. And then we'll go back around the other way. And then just let your knees move in and out one at a time. So one of them's coming in while the other one is going out. And then let your legs come off toward one side, not come off. Let your knees go over to the side and keep them moving in and out like that. Create sort of a little massage through the side of the hip and the muscles that stabilize the outside of the hip joint. And then come back through the center, still moving one knee in while the other one is going out. And roll over toward the other side. Keep that in and out motion going. Yeah, just creating a little softening maybe through the glute muscles that are on the outside of the hip. And then come back to the center and let your feet come to the floor. And now inhale and bring the arms up overhead. Take a long stretch from your hips up alongside your torso through the armpits and out through the fingertips with the palms facing in, and exhale to lower them back down by your sides. And inhale to raise them overhead again, stretching long on both sides. And a little extra stretch on the right side from the left hip. You kind of slide your left hip down toward the left foot and reach up through the left fingers. Come back through the center, and then on the right side, kind of slide the right hip down toward its foot, reach up through the right fingers, back to the center. And now with the backs of the palms on the ground, make kind of a snow angel with your arms so that they come down alongside your torso and then sweep back up again. Now don't do any of this if it causes pain through your shoulders, of course. If you leave the weight of your arms down on the ground, you might have a little bit more range of motion than you do if you have to use your muscles to support the weight of your arms. So back overhead again, turn the palms to face in, and exhale the arms down, and they're coming toward your sides, but stop them when they get to where your fingertips are pointing toward the ceiling. And we're just going to move out of the shoulder joint a little bit here. So it doesn't really matter which is the inhale and which is the exhale. On one part of the breath cycle, stretch your fingers toward the ceiling so that the back of your shoulders come away from the floor, and off the opposite part of the breath cycle, we're keeping the arms kind of straight. Bring the back of the shoulders to press down into the floor, and then back pulling away from the floor. So see if you can get some considerable range of movement here just by moving from the shoulders. So your arms are just sticking out from your shoulders, and all that's moving is that your shoulders are pulling away from the floor to put the fingertips closer to the ceiling, and then pressing down into the floor. Another one of those until the shoulders come back down to the floor, and then let the arms relax out to the sides with the palms facing up. And walk your feet apart from each other, maybe a little more than the mat's width apart. And now let the right knee fall in toward the center. You can let the other leg fall out to the outside if you like. Stretch up with the right arm, point the right knee down, stretch the right hand up, Exhale to bring the arm back down to the T shape and the knee back up to the center. And then in an exhale, let the left knee fall in, raise the left arm alongside the ear, point the knee down, reach up through the fingertips, big stretch on that side of the body. And then exhale, bring the arms back out to a T and the knee back up, and walk your feet back in toward each other. And bring the knees up over the hips a moment. And we'll just let the knees sway off to the left side, draw them back up through the center with an exhale. Let them sway off to the right side, back up through the center on an exhale. So your inhale to let them down, exhale to bring them back up. Just complete that set off to the right again and back to the center, and let the knees come down. So first of all, let's just do a little planking on the floor. So stretch the legs out long. Give some activity through the feet. So you're going to flex the feet back toward the shins and flex your toes toward the top of the feet, which is the position they would be in if you had your toes tucked and you were in a full leg plank position. And now let's bring the arms up. Just have the palms facing in for a moment, although soon they're going to turn the other way. Leave the back, okay. Leave the back of your shoulders on the floor for the moment. So we're kind of squaring across the top of the chest. And now rotate your hands so that your fingers are pointing back toward the top of your head. So you've got your hands flexed so that the back of your palms are toward the back of your forearm, and your fingers are pointing back overhead. So this is the position you would be in if you were in a full plank turned over 180 degrees, right? So we'll just tone the muscles here. We got tone in the muscles of the arms, we've got tone in the muscles of the legs, and we'll create tone all the way through the torso as well. Stretch the back of the neck long, reaching out through the top of the head. So you're reaching from your heels up through the top of your head. And now we're going to move the arms, but if we were with the weight on the hands, it would be the body that was moving up and down. So make that same motion through the shoulders, of drawing the shoulders up off the floor and then back down onto the floor and up off the floor and back down onto the floor, and once more up off the floor and back down onto the floor. And then you can let your arms and your legs relax for a moment. Take a little wriggle. Just let everything relax. All right, so now what if we were in a forearm plank with full legs? So we'll do that upside down too. So we're going to bring the elbows up over the shoulders. The palms are going to face toward the ceiling. The fingers are back facing toward your head, facing back behind your head. Plant the forearms as if they were on the floor. Plant the hands as if they were on the floor. So your forearms are about shoulder width apart. Again, create some activity through the legs and the feet, drawing the top of the feet back toward the shins, drawing the toes back toward the top of the feet. And we're going to do that same thing here. So I think it makes sense to exhale while you draw the shoulders up off the floor so the forearms are getting closer to the ceiling, and inhale as you bring the shoulders back down toward the floor, squaring the shoulders, and exhale to press them away, and inhale to bring them back down, and exhale to press them away, and inhale to bring them back down, and then just let the arms relax by your sides, let your legs relax. Bend one foot, knee at a time to bring your feet into the floor, and just take a little loose side to side sway here, and then roll yourself over to one side and pause there for a moment before using your arms to push yourself up and away from the floor. Now, we're not going to do nothing but planks today, so we'll leave that for just a moment here and take a seated position, just a comfortably cross-legged seated position. So if you like a little prop under the hips in order to have your pelvis roll forward and have a little inward curve at the waist, that would be great. Shrug the shoulders up toward the ears, let them fall down. Shrug them up again, move them a little down and a little back so that you're sitting with broadness across the top of the chest, and let your elbows hang close to your sides. So just position your hands wherever, let your arms be completely relaxed and the elbows hanging down under the shoulders close to the sides. Create length in the back of the neck. Take some generous breaths here. You might put a hand on your belly to make sure that your belly muscles are relaxed enough that they move in and out freely as you inhale and exhale. And with the hands on the knees, let's just create a little mobility through the spine. So one thing that can happen when you're doing planks is you can get to feel like you're sort of locked in position, that you don't have freedom of movement. And that's one of the things that we're going to explore today, is to how to have a feeling that you can still move parts of your body around while you're doing some kind of plank. But let's just do a little articulation of the spine here. So on an exhale, tip the tailbone under, flatten the small of the back. We're not going so much for a big rounding of the shoulders as we are to roll the pelvis back and forth. So on an inhale, the tailbone gets back and the whole front of the spine opens up. You can look up a little if you like, and then we'll rock back on the exhale and stretch forward on the inhale. This always reminds me of the figurehead on the prow of a ship when you make the seated cow back. So we'll have just a few of those and then back to a neutral spine. And now let's have a little rotation. Inhaling the arms up overhead, exhaling to turn towards your left. Let one arm fall in front and one behind. Pause there, take a couple breaths here. So on an inhale, make yourself a little taller. On an exhale, find a little more ease to the twist. Not necessarily a deeper twist, but a little more relaxation through the muscles of the torso. And then inhale the arms back overhead, turn through the center with a tall spine, and turn toward your right. One arm falls in front and one behind. Take a couple breaths here. Lengthening on the inhale, finding some ease on the exhale. Back of the neck is long, the back shoulder draws toward the back of the body. On your next inhale, bring the arms back overhead, and exhale the arms back down to the sides. So let's return to our planking experiments. So bring yourself around to hands and knees. So I like to say that there's a plank for everyone. So one possible plank could be a hands and knees position where you're using your core muscles to keep your body in a straight line from the back of the hips through the shoulders, out through the back of the neck, and out through the top of the head. Some people's wrists and hands don't like this so much, in which case using the forearms for support is an alternative. So you could have a hands and knees, or a hands and forearms, knees and forearms position. You can either have your hands flat, or you could have your hands and your lower arms up on the outer edges with the palms facing in. Either one of those is fine. So that's an option. So first we'll just observe the motion of the shoulders in either the hands and knees or the forearms and knees position. So just recall that motion through the shoulders that we did when you were lying on your back, and allow your upper part of your torso to kind of slump down between the shoulders, and then press away with your hands so that your upper torso comes up above the line of your shoulders, and just move up and down a few times like that. And it's partly you're pressing through your hands, but it's partly that you're gathering up through some muscles right here along the upper part of your rib cage under your armpits. So see if you can locate those muscles that can create this little bit of up and down motion. And you can do this from your forearms too. So if you're on the forearms, the same thing can happen. You could be slumped down between your shoulders, or you could be pressed up so that your upper back is sort of coming up between the shoulders. So just explore that a little bit. And then we'll also explore the idea that you could shift your weight back and forth a little. So you can bring your hips back a little behind the knees, and then you could bring your shoulders out a little ahead of your hands, or a little ahead of your elbows if you're down on your forearms. We could do some things with the torso. We could kind of gather up through the stomach muscles and let them relax a little bit. So it's just like a little tiny cat and cow here, kind of flattening the small of the back and then letting it droop down a little bit. So we exhale to bring the belly muscles up, inhale to let them droop down a little bit. Let's take a little break for the hands or the forearms by stretching back into child's pose. Reach your hands out to the front and reach them out a little wider than your shoulders. Take a long stretch all along to the two sides of your torso, from the back of the hips out through the fingertips. And then walk the hands back a little bit more toward the center, and we'll just take a little twisting motion here. So on an inhale, bring your right arm out to the side, and on the exhale, press through your left hand to thread that right arm underneath you so that you can rest on the side of the head and the side of your right shoulder, left side of your head and left shoulder. If you've got a little pillow or a roll of towel, you could put that under there if you don't rest comfortably. And take a couple of rests in this twisty position. And then inhale to bring that arm back out to the side and back out in front of you. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. So on an inhale, bring your left arm out to the side, press through the right hand, thread the left arm under your right armpit and rest on the side of the left shoulder and left side of your head. I think I said that backward the last time. In any case, we're doing this to each side. So do the one that you didn't do before. And again, if you don't rest comfortably, you could put something under your shoulder and your head to give it a little support. And take a few breaths, flaring out the ribs while they're in this twisty position. And press through the right hand to extract your left arm, bring it back out to the side, out to the front, and then rock yourself back forward. And having taken a little break for the hands and the wrists and the elbows and the shoulders, now let's try some varieties of front planks here. So let's do a full plank first. So it's full arms and on the tucked toes. Press through all parts of your hand, especially the inner side of your hand, the thumb and the forefinger, and draw the hands in toward each other to square up the front of the chest. If you're going to have your hips above or below the line from your heels up to the top of your head, let it be a little with the bum sticking up rather than with the bum drooping down and creating a curve in your spine. Okay. And now if you feel like, well, this is just terrible, I can't stay here, please make a modification to this by bringing your knees down to the floor, put a little more of your weight into your knees and the top of your feet. That would be fine. And if your arms and wrists don't like this, come down to forearms. Now we're all going to go down to forearms and knees in a moment, just to explore what's different about that. But if you're comfortable enough on your full arms and the tucked toes, we'll just do a little of that shoulder motion, letting your body sink down between your shoulders and then drawing it up again. So, wonder of wonders, you actually can move a little while you're in a plank position, so you're not just stuck there. And you could push through your hands and stretch back through the back of the legs and the bottom of the feet, so you're moving your weight a little bit back. And then you could push forward with the toes so your weight comes a little forward. So you could go back and forth a little bit there. You could even kind of roll a little bit side to side. You could even rock your pelvis a little bit, not very far, but you can tuck your tailbone under, tip it to the back, just showing that you've got a little mobility there. Bring the knees back down. Take any kind of restful pose that you like. It could be a child's pose. If that's not so restful, you could just kneel or sit. Do something to just rest your spine, rest your arms for a moment. And then stretch your arms out ahead of you and roll back forward. So now we're going to, everybody use the forearms. I'm just going to observe what's different about this. So let's tuck the toes. You can either have your knees down or your knees up off the floor here. So we'd like to have the elbows under the shoulders. Sometimes it seems like they would like to be wider. If that's what makes you feel comfortable, go ahead. But you see if you can have your elbows under the shoulders, so not too wide. Again, pressing either into the flats of the palms, or you can press into the narrow side of the palms. And again, if your bum is going to deviate from a line from your heels up through the top of your head, let it be a little high rather than a little low. We can do that same pressing forward so the face comes forward closer to the hands. We could rock back so that the face comes closer to the elbows. We can do that same pressing up so the shoulders kind of come up. I mean, the back comes up between the shoulders. We can kind of slump down, move back and forth like that. You can do a little rolling side to side. And then you could just let yourself down all the way onto your belly, crossing your hands under your head or turning your head to one side and bringing the feet off the floor and taking a little swish of the legs from side to side to make a little rotating motion through your spine as your hips roll back and forth. So for my taste, I think that the forearm plank is actually a lot more work for the core muscles than the full arm plank. So there must just be something about the other muscles that I recruit anyway in the full arm plank that take some of the load away and don't target the core as much. So just an observation, might not be the same for you, but anyway, you're the one who's here observing your own body, okay? So let's come up into a Sphinx pose for a moment. So we'll prop the upper body on the forearms. Again, you can have your hands flat or the palms facing in toward each other, the the elbows under the shoulders. And we're just going to create broadness across the chest. So draw the shoulders toward the back of the body. Maybe you can feel your shoulder blades come toward each other, toward your spine and back. Little traction of the elbows back toward the hips, stretching along the front of the spine. Let your head and your neck be a continuation of the curve, the small curve that your back is making. So not a big up with the head. It's probably looking toward the floor, some distance ahead of your hands. And we could roll a little bit here, pressing through the left hip and just kind of rolling to your right, looking over the right shoulder, and press through the left hip and roll the other way. And back to the center. And now we're going to take a half forearm plank here. So the upper part of the body is going to be supported on the forearms, and the lower part of the body is going to be supported on the knees and the top of whatever part of the top of the shins and the top of the feet that are down. You could have your toes tucked too, that would be okay. So we're going to exhale and gather up all those core muscles to bring yourself up from the floor. So depending on the different proportions of body parts, you might not get into a decent plank just by sucking up off the floor from Sphinx pose. So if you need to move your knees or your elbows to a different distance from each other, that will be fine. So we're again going to press actively into the forearms and the hands to support the upper part of the body. And we can just tip the hips from side to side a little bit, just move them a little bit. We could do a little tucking the tailbone under, just a little bit. We could move the weight. That's not very much room to move forward and back, but we could do a little bit of that. And then press yourself back. So you're pressing away, your face is coming in between the shoulders, your bum is kind of sticking up into the air. So we're kind of coming back into what we could make into a down puppy by pressing through the hands and bringing the elbows up off the mat. And this is really another sort of plank, right? Where the upper body is doing the plank part. And then we can walk the hands back till we come to a kneeling position. And just come up to kneeling a moment. I'm going to turn this way. I think it'll make more sense. We do a little bit of gate pose here. Let's do a couple kinds of gate pose. So you can kneel, putting the knees under the hip joints and the lower leg straight out behind you for the moment, either with the top of the feet flat, the top of the feet on the mat, or with your toes tucked. Either one will be fine. Got broadness across the shoulders. The shoulders are above the hips and the knees. Turn your palms forward a moment. So we've got kind of a half-legged standing mountain position here. Length through the back of the neck, as if you were growing through the same place that your hair is coming from at the back of the head. And we're going to bring the right knee forward to begin. We'll do two species of gate pose here, I think. So we'll bring the right foot forward. You can do that however works. If coming down to hands and knees and then bringing it forward is what works, do that. And then we'll just start walking it out to the side. So we're just starting to externally rotate that right leg. Now, maybe it comes way out to the side, maybe it's sticking mostly toward the front. Do whatever works for you that lets you still keep your shoulders square to the front and doesn't twist your body off to the side, okay? And then if you like, you can walk the foot away so that your leg starts to straighten out, but you don't have to. You could leave your knee bent there. That would be fine. We're gonna stand tall. Got strong support on the left side of the body from the left knee up through the top of the head. We're just gonna let the right arm rest gently on the leg. We don't wanna be pressing the weight down into it, and stretch up with the left arm, making length on the left side of the body, and a kind of an up and over, keeping the head and neck, shoulder, and the raised arm all in line with the torso to create a little bit of an up and over toward the extended leg. Keep breathing here. Breathe into the ribs and the side of the waist on the open side on your left side. And then inhale both arms back up overhead. And we'll exhale the left arm down to the mat or to a block, which of course I should have told you to have handy beforehand, not when you're right all in the middle of things. In line with your supporting knee, put the weight into that foot. You can sweep the upper arm up so that it's stretching up toward the ceiling. You could just leave it stacked on the top hip, or you could reach it alongside the top ear with the palm facing down toward the floor. So you're taking a long stretch along the top side of your body, and you could lift that foot off the floor. Now, this is a little different because now the top of your foot is facing up toward the ceiling. We're going to do this with the leg in a different orientation in a minute. And we'll let the leg down, sweep back up again with both arms overhead, let the arms down, bring that leg back underneath you. Just take a little half-legged elephant trunk twist here. And back to the center. And now we're going to bring the left knee forward. So we're creating strong support on the right side of the body from the right knee up through the top of the head. Going to walk the left foot out to the side so the left leg is externally rotating from the hip, just whatever allows your torso to continue to face forward. If you like, you can straighten that leg, pointing the toe away from you. You could either have the foot flat on the floor, or you could be up onto the heel of that foot. It feels different, definitely feels different through the ankle particularly. And then we'll sweep the right arm up overhead. Just let the right arm rest along the left arm, rest along the extended leg. I seem to have got a big confusion here in my brain. And then we're going to go up and over toward the extended leg, breathing into the open right side of the body, feeling the ribs flare in and out there. Head and neck stay back in line with the torso. The shoulder and the raised arms stay back in line with the torso. And then we'll inhale both arms up overhead. And now let your right arm come down to a block or the mat in line with the supporting knee. Stretching out, it feels awkward to me with the toe pointing away. Yeah. And you can stretch your arm up overhead so that you're reaching from the planted hand to the raised fingers, or you could have a teapot handle, or you could stretch that top line of your body further by reaching the hand out with the palm facing down. If you like, you can bring the extended leg up off the floor. Keep breathing the whole time. And this is sort of like a side plank, sort of. And let that foot come back down. Inhale the arms back overhead, and then exhale the arms back down to your sides and bring that extended leg back underneath you and take another little side-to-side swish here. Okay. So actually, I'm not going to do the other kind of gate pose. I lied because I think time is a little short for the other things that I want to do. So we're going to come to a standing position. So carefully bring one foot forward and tuck the other toe so you can slowly bring yourself up to standing. That's great. And let's do a little bit of gentle movement here before we turn our attention to planking while standing upright. Okay. So let's do a little dancing warrior. I think that this, I think it's easier to see what I'm doing if I face to the front here. So we'll put the joints of the legs and the long axis of the feet under the hip joints. Bring the palms together in front of the breastbone. Stand tall here. Pick something to look at that's not going to move around because we're going to step from one leg to the other. Inhaling to bring the arms out to cactus arms and one knee up in front. Exhaling to bring that foot back down where it came from and the hands together, and then to the other side. So concentrate in doing this on keeping yourself gathered around the midline of your body. So as little shifting side to side as is possible. Of course, you have to shift a bit in order to lift one foot off the floor. And bringing the knee straight out to the front and setting it right back down where it came from. And moving very slowly and deliberately, using your breath to organize the motion so that you're inhaling as you're raising the knee and opening the arms, and exhaling as you're bringing everything back to the center. And you might notice that one side seems to come up with more stability and more fluidity than the other. That would be perfectly normal. And let's finish out one whole cycle and then come back to a standing mountain position. And settle back down there. Okay, so now I'm going to turn to the side here, and we're just going to, we're going to take a tree pose and use that to explore the possibility that you might still be able to move around a little, even when you're using all your core muscles for stability. So that's very like what we're doing in plank, where we're really calling on all the core muscles, but want to kind of explore whether we could still have a little bit of freedom of motion. So we'll stand on both feet to begin, and then shift the weight into the left foot, drawing the left hip in a little bit. The kind of similar to gate pose, we're going to externally rotate the other leg. So the right leg, the toe and the knee are going to face out a bit. It could be a little, it could be a lot. Torso stays square to the front. You can bring the hands to the heart or anywhere else you like to begin. Press the weight into the standing leg. You could just stay right there with the heel of your unweighted foot against the standing leg, or you could bring that foot further up onto the standing leg. Oops, pick something to look at that's not moving around. If you like, back up to a wall or into a doorway where you've got a little security, or where you can put your hand on the back of a chair. And notice how you're using your core muscles and the muscles through the hips and the legs. to keep yourself supported here. But then see what else you could do. Maybe you can move your arms around a bit. Maybe you can move the knee of the unweighted leg around, bringing it toward the front. Whoa, and out to the side. Maybe you can bring the foot off the standing leg and kind of move it around across your body into the front and the back. Maybe you can even do a little tucking and tipping of the pelvis. Whoa, that's really hard to do. Just an experiment. And when you're done experimenting, step yourself back down. Take a little loose bobble up and down. And we'll do that on the other side. So we're going to first start in the standing mountain position, a good starting point for all sorts of balancing. So weight into both feet, front and back of the feet. Core muscles toned but not tense here, so still room to breathe in and out freely. And then we'll shift the weight into the right foot, gathering the right hip in, externally rotating the left leg, the toe and the knee of the left leg face a little out to the side, or maybe a lot out to the side, depending on what your hip joints like to do. Bring the hands to the heart to begin. Pick something to focus on. Again, please make use of any kind of balancing props that you like. You can leave that heel on the supporting leg or raise the foot and press the raised foot and the supporting leg together. So we're using all the muscles all the way up through the body, through the leg, through the hips, through the torso, even the head and the neck stretching long. Make this balancing posture. And then we could do a little experimenting. Maybe a little experimenting with moving the arms around. Maybe a swaying palm tree. Maybe even a little back bend. Maybe a little tucking of the pelvis and tipping backward. Whoa, that is really hard to do. A little less hard is to move the knee around in and out. Maybe take the foot off the leg and just move the leg around a bit. Just experimenting. And then we'll sit that foot back down and walk the legs kind of far apart and take a very loose swish, letting the arms swing, letting the heel come off the floor, the knee bend, the hips turn from side to side. Okay, now we're going to come back toward the floor for a little bit of side planking. So we'll inhale the arms overhead and exhale, hinge forward, keeping the spine stretching long. Let the hands run down the legs. Let them run back up again. Stretch the spine long in a L shape. So again, the core muscles are supporting the upper body. Let the hands run down. Let the knees bend. Bring the hands to the mat. Walk the feet back and the hands forward. Take a little stretch in down dog. Breath here. Then bring the knees down to the mat. If you like a little padding under your hip while you're doing a side plank, this would be the time to get that. If you like a little padding under your arm or your hand, this would be the time to get that too. So let's set up first with a full arm side plank. So you're going to have your, I'm going to put my hand on my mat so that it doesn't slip. So the fingers are pointing in line with your torso. So the fingers are pointing away from your body. Press into all parts of your hand. Your wrist will be a little ahead of your shoulder. For a half-legged full arm side plank, we'll have the knees pointing down toward the bottom of the mat, the lower legs and feet behind the line of the torso, so that you have a long line from your knees up through your hips, up through your torso. The shoulders are broad. You can leave your top hand just resting on the top hip, or when you come up, you can reach that hand away from you. So we'll gather up the muscles on the underside of the torso to raise the hip away from the floor. Maybe stretch the arm up overhead. The head and neck stay in line with the spine. So the head is back in line with the rest of the torso. And we can move a little bit here. We can press away from the floor and then let yourself drop back down. So you've got some movement out of that shoulder that's supporting you. A little bit of movement there. We can draw the underside of the body further up and let it back down a little bit. Got a little bit of motion there. We could take a little rolling motion, bringing one shoulder forward and then back. So we're kind of rolling a little bit toward the floor and a little away from the floor. Just watch your shoulder. If you have shoulder issues that might not appreciate this. And then let yourself roll back down again. Take a little break here. Roll onto the belly. Pillow the head with the hands. Take a little side to side swish with the legs. And we'll do that same thing on the other side. I'm going to swap around so that I'm still facing you, but you don't need to swap around. So we'll do a full arm half plank here, fingers facing away, the whole body from the knees through the hips, up through the shoulders, lined up with the back side of the mat, lower legs and feet behind you. Press away with your hand, draw up with the underside of the body away from the floor, head and neck in line with the spine. You can either stand the hand on the top hip or reach out, just out from the shoulder. No need to reach way around behind. And again, we could experiment with a little movement through the shoulder, sinking down, pressing away. We could draw up with the underside of the body, so almost making a curve out of the torso from the knees up through the top of the head. You could let it slump down a little bit, curving the other way. We could do a little bit of rolling action, opening the shoulders, folding down toward the floor just a little bit, not too much. And lower yourself back down, roll onto the belly again. Let the knees be kind of wide apart, bring the feet up into the air, and take another little swish side to side. So I'm just going to finish off this, push yourself up away from the floor, come to a seated position for a moment. I'm just going to finish off this little plank exploration with a brief foray into front planking. So you sit with your knees bent and your feet about hip joints width apart. And either you're kind of rocked back onto your hands, either with the fingers pointing in toward your hips, or for a bit of less extension at the wrist, you can turn your fingers away from the center of your body so that your fingers are pointing out to the side. If that is not comfortable, you could use your forearms here. You could rock back, put your elbows under your shoulders and be pressing into your forearms instead of into your hands and your wrists. So whichever position you're in, we're going to press through the hands, broaden across the shoulders, press through the feet, lift the bum away from the floor into a reverse tabletop. Keep pressing into the inside edge of your hand, keep pressing into all parts of your feet, especially the inside edge. I would not drop the head all the way back here. If you want to look up toward the ceiling with the head and neck in line with the spine, that's okay. But I think it's a lot more comfortable actually to just leave your chin tucked in toward your chest here, but keep the shoulders broad here. Now we could press up a little further, let the bum sink down a little. Can't really go in and out of your shoulders in this position. I wouldn't recommend that. You can shift the weight a little forward and back. When you shift forward, it puts a little more stretch on those wrist joints. And let's sink down again. Just take the weight off your arms and your wrists. Give a little circling of the hands around the wrists for a little relief here. And if you didn't try the forearm support, just give that a go. Just see how it is. It's different. So the wrists are under the shoulders, press down. So you don't want to be slumped down. You want to press so that the torso comes up between the shoulders, and then press into the forearm plank here. And here, I think letting the head go back a little bit is a little more relaxing, but not very relaxing. This is not really a very relaxing posture. And let your bum back down. Let yourself rest all the way down on the mat. Let your head rest. Pick your bum up, stretch it away from your shoulders, lots of length in the spine. Walk your feet out to the sides and take a very loose swish of the knees, letting one fall in and the other one fall out. Stretch your arms out away from you. Let both the upper and the lower part of your body relax. And now in the about 1 minute that we have left, we got about 2 or 3 minutes, good. So now, let me just make sure I'm not getting out of the screen here. So now we haven't done anything that brings the legs up over the heart, so let's do that before we close. So if you want to elevate your hips a little bit, you could use your stacked palms under your sacrum, or you could put a small pillow or a fold of blanket or a block if you have one. And we'll bring the legs up over the hips. Just easy, easy. If it feels like you're having a big abdominal exercise here, bring your legs further toward your torso. If that's hard to do, you can bend at the knees so the weight of your legs comes more toward your torso, so that you're having a sort of relaxing type of inversion here for the moment. So take 7 or 8 generous breaths here with the legs up over the hips, reversing the flow of gravity. And now let's just do a little easy bicycling of the feet. So you'll have one heel pressed toward the ceiling while the other knee bends, and then the other heel pressed toward the ceiling. So an easy motion, keeping the long bones of the legs in line with the hip joints. The toes are pointing straight back toward the top of your head here, stretching out the back of alternate legs. And then stretch both legs overhead, stretching out through the heels. Maybe a little pointing and flexing. You can point through the balls of the feet to avoid having the instep cramp. Point and extend both feet at the same time or opposite ones, which feels different around the back of the hips. And then let the knees bend. Take your hands out from under your bum if you have it there. Let the thighs come close to the chest. Just gather the torso and the thighs together with your arms behind the upper thighs. Open at the knee joints so that your feet stretch up toward the ceiling. This See if you can keep your back relaxed on the floor here in this happy baby position. Just continue grasping behind the thighs, or if you like, you can reach up to your shins or your ankles or up to your feet. Keep letting the tailbone relax down toward the floor. See if you can let the whole back relax here. Maybe roll a little toward one side and just sort of stop and hang in midair before you fall over. Take a few breaths there. Roll back through the center and over to the other side and just kind of hang on the edge. Take a few breaths there. This is relaxing for a big muscle that connects the pelvis and the ribs and really gets a lot of exercise, especially in the side planking. And back to the center. You bring the soles of the feet together for a moment. Let the knees roll out to the side in a bound angle position. Just a breath here. Then let the feet come to the floor. It is time for Shavasana. So take any position that you like, where you can allow yourself to become very still. It's nice to take the opportunity to turn the palms up toward the ceiling. Let the shoulders relax toward the floor. If you're comfortable with your legs outstretched, that's fine. If not, you can have your knees bent, have your legs propped on a chair, on a pillow. Feel your breathing start to settle here. Feel your body start to relax. This is the processing time, the digestion time. Let your hands relax toward the floor so the backs of your palms are on the floor. Let your fingers and your thumb uncurl as much as they will. Don't force them, just see if you can allow them to uncurl. Take easy breaths. Now let your breathing become a little deeper. Start bringing a little movement back to your hands and your feet. And then let that propagate a little further up into your legs and your arms. If your legs are outstretched, bend one knee at a time so you can bring your feet flat to the floor. Take a few easy sways of the knees from side to side. And let that carry you under one side and rest there with your eyes closed for a few breaths, using your arm to pillow your head. And then on an exhale, kind of roll your body toward the floor and press with your arms so that your head can just kind of drag behind as you come upright to a seated position to close class. I like to have a little something under my poor tailbone here. So sit with a tall spine, the pelvis rolled forward a little bit, shoulders relaxed away from the ears, elbows close to the body. And without disturbing the relaxation of your shoulders and your upper arms, just bring the palms slightly together and the thumbs near the breastbone. And we'll close with one Om after an inhale. Thank you for practicing together today. I hope you're enjoying the rain. Namaste.